So, talking about hypergamy, it was used in India, and I think in the mid 1800s, where India, colonized by Great Britain, had a social caste system. So you had laborers, business owners, political figures, and religious figures. And there was a social strata. And then once you were born into one layer, you kind of stayed there. However, there were occasions when, let's say, a laborer's beautiful daughter was arranged to marry a shopkeeper's shy and awkward son. And this would benefit the woman because she, and then ultimately their children, would be of a higher social standing. And that was called hypergamy, that moving up in social class. Now, the way it's used modernly, it is used to describe how women behave in relationships in particular, in that they're always looking for something better. That's the way it gets characterized. They get into a relationship with you, but if something better comes along, they'll monkey branch is the term that gets used into that something better. And that was never the case for me personally. I mean, I was in relationships that ended, and sometimes I ended it, and sometimes they ended it, and usually because the relationship had come to an end, not seizing some opportunity for a better partner. I think there is some criticism that women want the best man they can find. And I think that's true. And I think men also want the best woman they can find. Now, men and women may have different ideas about what makes for the best partner. And individuals, of course, will have their own ideas about what makes the best partner. But I don't think anybody, men or women, are circling the drain looking for, something in the muck. I think everybody is trying to find the very best partner they can possibly find. It's like capitalism in relationships. There's something efficient about that. And I don't think anyone should be presented as disloyal or manipulative just because they want to find a good partner, the best partner that they're able to find. I don't think I would wrap my head too much around this idea of hypergamy, that women are always trying to find a better man. I think you want to find evidence of that. And just because a woman leaves a relationship doesn't make it any worse than a man leaving a relationship. And I think men and women leave relationships in comparable numbers. Now, there is a statistic I've heard, and I think this is being misinterpreted, where women are responsible for 70% of divorces. What does that mean? A woman initiating a divorce. Is she the one that said, I'm unhappy, I want a divorce? Because I don't know that they have that statistic. The statistic they have is who filed the divorce paperwork. Who is it that initiated the legal proceeding of divorce, which is different than who's responsible for the failure of that marriage. But that distinction is being left unidentified. And I think, by a crowd that likes to blame women for things. So just because a woman files the paperwork doesn't mean she's the reason the relationship failed. She could be. It doesn't mean she's not. But in my marriage, I'm divorced now. My wife took care of the family business. Like if we had to sign kids up for school, I assume you have to sign them up for school. I mean, I don't know. I never signed them up for school. And that was something that she did. Now, I did taxes, but aside from that, most of the family paperwork, the business of managing a family, she handled. Those were our roles essentially in our marriage. That's not uncommon. I mean, I don't think I ever made a doctor's appointment or a dentist's appointment, or I took them a few times, but even she did most of that kind of thing. So is there some other explanation as to why women file the paperwork more often, I think there's probably a lot of credible differences. But to blame the person that files the paperwork for a failed marriage doesn't seem reasonable to me. And I think it's doing a disservice to both men and women, creating the sense that women are to blame for failed relationships. And by relieving men of the responsibility of being a little bit introspective, or other men hearing that it's not just women that are the problem, it would encourage people to take a more proactive role in those relationships. If someone is unhappy, they're going to move along. I find a lot of men on the internet seem to think that's not enough of a good reason to end a marriage, and I don't agree with that. In fact, I find that a little concerning. If a man doesn't think his wife needs to be happy, and that he needs to invest in and pay attention to that relationship, that guy might just get a little bit lazy and take advantage of that relationship because he isn't concerned about her satisfaction in the relationship. And that would be a pretty lazy perspective to have, I believe, on a relationship. I don't believe that women by their nature are disloyal to men unless they're simply unhappy in that relationship and don't want to continue with it. And there's nothing advantageous about being a single mom. So for a woman to leave a marriage with children, to go into trying to raise children as a single mom, handling probably the lion's share of the responsibility of raising the children. I think more women are more often primary caretakers. I don't think that's anything any woman I know would do unless they had a legitimate reason for it. So just final thought, this idea of hypergamy and that women by their nature are opportunistic and disloyal, so you can't really trust them, I don't think it's doing a service to either men or women. And I would be a little skeptical about accepting those conclusions.